What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we are going to talk through my top 16 Dynasty rookie rankings from the 2023 class. So this is going to be CJ Stroud, Puka Nacua, all of these guys, because in season, we do the rookie wide receiver report. You guys absolutely love it. I'm honestly I don't know. The last 2 years we started the rookie wide receiver report, and I didn't expect it to be in season. I'd kind of say it's not what I'm known for, but it's one of our kind of flagship things we do. I've gotten a lot of comments recently where it's like, Ron, the rookie wide receiver report helped me out a ton, getting, Rashee Rice and Jayden Reed and all of these rookies who were great this year. So I wanted to, in the spirit of, remember, again, this week I wanted to tie up some loose ends on the 2023 season. We talked through our lessons learned, and now I kind of want to do an expansion of the rookie wide receiver report and just kind of talk through all of the rookies. Where am I at on Puka Nacua? Where am I at on CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, all of these guys. So we're going to talk through my top 16 rookie rankings, end of season rookie rankings for the 2023 class. This is as it pertains to Dynasty, Superflex, tight end premium leagues going into the offseason. So you can kind of get a feel for how I'm tiering these players, treating their rookie years, and kind of my outlook for them moving forward. We're going to put them in a tier list, all of that good stuff. So strap in. And we have 11 pages of notes here, a lot to get into. But again, I just want to make sure that we have a frozen capsule in time. I'll be honest, this video might have been more relevant 3 weeks ago. I know a lot of people want the 2024 class. We're going to talk about the 2024 class literally after this video is done recording through the NFL draft in May. So we're going to have plenty of 2024 rookie talk, but today, 2023 rookie talk. As always, if you enjoy, make sure down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen. She gon' let me.
All right, now get me back in the tier list saddle here. We are here. I have it broken up into 5 tiers. Now, these are just super rough. I'm not going to sit here and say for sure the player you get in, the player I'm going to put in 3+ rookie first, you're going to be able to net 3+ rookie first for. It's essentially like if somebody all right, so the first guy we're going to talk about is CJ Stroud. If somebody offered me more than let's say somebody offered me 3 first-round picks and Bryce Young, I probably wouldn't be able to turn that down. I don't even really like Bryce Young. That's just an example, right? Some kind of quarterback and 3 firsts on top. Jordan Love and 3 firsts. I don't think you're going to get these offers. I'm just saying that's kind of almost like my sell price. If you send me that offer in my inbox, I probably begrudgingly accept in terms of these tiers. Now, I feel much stronger about the tiers themselves, where the tier breaks are, than the rankings within each tier. So if you want to flip around the players within each tier, go ahead. And again, Superflex, Dynasty, tight end premium. Now, the extended tight end premium, 1.5 for me, but where the tight ends are on this list will just sort of come down to how heavy of a tight end premium you have, how many starting spots you have. But this is just roughly, universal Dynasty rookie rankings. Now, first up, let's talk about CJ Stroud. And this is why I'm glad we're doing this, because I do want to have kind of a little bit of a time capsule almost, where season just ended, everything's fresh. We don't have offseason hype trains and stuff. This is just what just went down, completely non-biased. How do I view these players moving forward? And CJ Stroud is a freaking stud, man. He is a top 6 startup pick, borderline untouchable asset at this point in time. Now, quarterbacks you're going to see have a huge premium in Dynasty in general, where the top 6 picks are quarterbacks, right? It's going to be Mahomes, Allen, Hurts. Then you can kind of talk yourself into Stroud, Burrow, Herbert, Lamar, all of those guys. And Stroud is very comfortably in that tier of you can make a conversation to have him as high as your 104 in a startup right now because of these reasons. Now, when we look at what he just did here, this is rookie quarterback points per game all time, I believe. It's either all time or since 2000. I think it's all time. And you can see here, he is the 4th best points per game from a rookie quarterback of all time. It's Cam Newton, Justin Herbert, Robert Griffin III, CJ Stroud, and then Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray. Now, the only miss on this list, I guess, is Jameis and Marcus Mariota. And I think that he's showed that he's not in those buckets, because if you go to the ANYA, adjusted net yards per attempt, he really shows out there, where he's set at 7+, which is with Griffin III, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, which means he's very efficient. You can also go over to the passing yards area, 4,108 passing yards in just 15 games, 23 touchdowns of 5 picks, is unheard of for a rookie quarterback. Like, if you just go up, of course, RG3 did the same thing, but he was just out of his damn mind. Like, you can go down to Kyler, who was at 20 touchdowns, 12 picks. Even Andrew Luck was 23 touchdowns, 18 picks. Like, you just don't see a guy throw 23 touchdowns and 5 picks in his first year, over 60% completion percentage. Like, he was just an absolute monster. Now, this is also quarterback efficiency and grading. So this is PFF offensive grade on the x-axis. I believe this is a chart from, I want to say Kevin Cole or Computer Cowboy on Twitter. PFF offensive grade on x-axis, EPA per play. That's just expected points added on a per play basis. What's your offensive efficiency? Are you moving the sticks more than you would be expected to? Are you scoring more points than you'd be expected to on a per play, per drive type basis? And he's in that big jumble of, Mahomes, Herbert, Stafford, Hurts. Like, he's just behind the tier of quarterback of like Dak, Allen, Lamar right now, which for a rookie, that is absolutely beautiful stuff. Now, he ends up this year 4th in yards per attempt, 4th in ADOT, so he's pushing the ball downfield, and that's kind of the best thing here. Despite the 5 interceptions, he pushes the ball downfield, and that's what we really want for a guy in CJ Stroud who's not a scrambler. So he's going to find his efficiencies from pushing the ball downfield and then also scoring touchdowns. Now, touchdowns are shaky, but ADOT's going to stay the same. So he pushes the ball downfield. He had the second highest graded passer rating on PFF, or the second highest graded passer on PFF of throws of 20-plus yards. He had 8 touchdowns, 0 picks on throws where I believe the ball travels in the air over 20 yards. So just absolutely insane. Really, really great season. Led the Texans to the playoffs. Like, he is very good. Somebody that, again, I would need a Godfather offer, an offer I cannot refuse, to move off of CJ Stroud. And so much so that he's going to be in his own tier. This is going to be a nice little tier break where we go from like pretty much like your top half of a startup draft to like the early second of a startup draft is where I would have this 2+ rookie first area. And first up, we'll talk through Bijan Robinson. And I guess this is kind of a redraft, right? We can kind of like say like he'd be our 102 if we drafted again today. Now, there's a lot of players in this tier. I'm just going to be straight up. There's about 5 players. If you wanted to make a case to have him as your 102 in this class, you could. But I'm going to go with Bijan. He has a ton of pedigree, and he was absolutely shafted by bad coaching, but I still think he showed what we drafted him to be. He showed his talent. He's still very, very young. If I look it up, I want to say he's like 22 years old at this point. He might even be 21. Yeah, he's 21. He turns 22 January 30th. So he's still super, super young, especially in a running back landscape that's awful, right? Like, we're going to have this 2024 class, which is not good. All of the, McCaffrey gets another year older. Eckler looked washed. Chubb's coming off an ACL. Like, Pollard looked washed. Derrick Henry is probably going to be off of the Titans, and that's usually not pretty when running backs change teams at the end of their careers. So, like, I don't mind pushing up Bijan Robinson and still giving him the benefit of the doubt after being, like, the prince who was promised last year. Like, we clearly understand that Arthur Smith was not good news for Bijan Robinson. Now, again, we talked about in the Top 10 Lessons Learned video. I gave Arthur Smith the benefit of the doubt, thinking that, okay, he's had Derrick Henry in the past, and he's led Derrick Henry to multiple 20-plus point per game seasons, but we can't have good things with Arthur Smith. I think he honestly just got too big for his britches, where with the Titans, he was underneath Vrabel, and I think that was elite. I think him taking orders from somebody is probably good in terms of him as a play caller. I think he kind of got power hungry and just sort of overthought everything in his time in Atlanta. But we can still be confident that Bijan Robinson is a special player, despite sort of disappointing here, right? Like, we can see here, Bijan Robinson, 976 rushing yards. I would have told you he was a lock to hit 1,000+. Like, it's pretty crazy what happened. Tyler Algier even hit 1,000+ last year, or 2 years ago, I mean. So just really weird usage. But still, when we look at my database, right, we have prospect tiers: legendary, elite, gold, silver, bronze, and they're all based on hit rates. I've gone over in other videos, but legendary is your cream of the crop. This is your top 10. These are running backs drafted in the top 10 since 2007. And Bijan Robinson, you can see graded out as legendary. He's in the same prospect tier as Saquon, Zeke, AP, Fournette, Todd Gurley, Christian McCaffrey. This is them sorted by points per game. And he's in between Todd Gurley, Christian McCaffrey with his 14.49 points per game this year. Again, that's not great, but it's on pace with guys like Todd Gurley and Christian McCaffrey. It's not unheard of that next year. Remember, now both of these guys, Gurley and McCaffrey, the following year, I believe the following year would finish as the RB1 overall, or at least hit like 20+ points per game and be really good. And I do truly think that that's what's in Bijan's wheelhouse, is challenging for 18 to 20+ points per game in this next year. We still know he's very good. He's a great prospect. He also he didn't have such a dud year that he's like in that McFadden CJ Spiller spot. You know what I mean? Like, he is in a fine spot in my eyes. And still, when we look at the efficiency metrics, he was good. He was 9th in explosive rush rate, 6th in missed tackles forced per attempt. He was 12th in rushing yards over expected per attempt. That's all just fine. Now, rushing yards over expected, we're going to use that sometimes with these running backs. It just simply means on a given play, based on the alignment, how many plays are in the box, all of that, how many yards were you expected to get, how many yards did you get more than that? And he's very good at getting above and beyond. We saw in Week 18 the 70-plus yard touchdown. He's a good player that was held back by his circumstances. I think that his situation can only go up from here. Now, the biggest thing with Bijan is that he catches passes. Even in this down year here, you can see he had 83 targets. He was one of 3 running backs this year with 80-plus targets. Now, he only caught 58 of them. I want to say that that's more on the quarterback than anything else. I wouldn't put that on him, right? Like, you can see Kamara had 86 targets for 75 catches, whereas Bijan had 83 for 58. I think we see that rebound. If he gets another 80-plus target season and he gets a coach that actually uses him correctly, we're going to see Bijan Robinson be a top 5 running back next year, and I do truly believe that. Now, if you're more of a what have you done lately for me guy, I think you can go as far as saying he's behind Jahmyr Gibbs for you. But I still do really believe in Bijan Robinson, the talent and who he was coming out of school. Now, after that, our number 3 player here is Anthony Richardson. Now, remember we said earlier, you can make a case for a few guys over Richardson, but quarterbacks are king in dynasty leagues. Again, if you go into a startup right now, 8 of the top 10 picks are going to be quarterbacks. It's going to be Jefferson, Chase, and then the rest are going to be quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson, to me, is one of the best bets to make his way into that top 8, like CJ Stroud did this season. And I think Richardson was well on his way before he got hurt. Now, that's going to be the biggest issue, is his health. He had like 4 games. I think 3 of them he left early with injuries. That is not good. But what is good is in these games, he scored a shit ton of fantasy points. If we put the points per game, best rookie years by points per game, and we just go minimum 4 games, right? That's tough. We're dealing with a small sample here, but still 18.2 points per game in those 4 games. Super, super impressive. You can also see this list. He is the only quarterback here listed at 21 years old. So that's a really good thing with Anthony Richardson, is he's very young. He has a lot of arm talent too. He had some like absolute lasers he was throwing. And I do really believe in Shane Steichen. I think Shane Steichen learned a valuable lesson when he took out Jonathan Taylor for the final play versus the Texans last week. But over the entire season, Steichen was amazing. He got his Colts team within, a score of the playoffs after losing Anthony Richardson, having Gardner Minshew. I would challenge you to name anybody on that defense. Like, I know, of course, Julius Brents is a rookie. Zaire Franklin's like one of their best players. Like, outside of DeForest Buckner, that is not a defense. They gave up 30-plus points numerous times, and Shane Steichen's offensive play calling and, getting things in rhythm and playing up-tempo, but also running the ball a ton. And Steichen, blown away with, really good play caller. If there was any play caller or offensive-minded head coach that I wanted for a young quarterback, it would be Steichen. And that's why I'm kind of giving Anthony Richardson the benefit of the doubt here. Now, remember, 18.2 points per game, 6th best rookie points per game quarterback season ever. But on top of that, if we just go by per snap, right, because, again, he left 3 of those games early, he was on a tear. Hayden Winks tweets out here. This was in October when he got hurt. But at that time, Anthony Richardson was tied with Josh Allen for most quarterback fantasy points per snap. He is an absolute game wrecker. He is somebody that can compete for QB1 overall in fantasy as soon as next year if he comes off of the shoulder surgery and is completely 100% ready to go. That is how good he is. So just from a upside standpoint, he was an elite prospect, top 5 pick. He has all the tools. It's just a matter of staying healthy. And I'm fine betting that he finds a way to stay healthy and score these fantasy points. Because, again, it's not like he tore an ACL or like it was something super, super brutal. It was kind of just a precautionary shoulder surgery from like a super severe AC joint sprain, I believe. So it's not, I don't know, I'm not all that concerned. We'll definitely keep a look at the reports and everything. But with a quarterback like this who comes in, like coming in and scoring fantasy points is huge. Like even Justin Fields his rookie year. Like if we look at what Justin Fields did, Justin Fields really good with his legs, of course. But he, like in his first year as a rookie, he wasn't even scoring points like this. You know what I mean? So that's what's so intriguing with Richardson is like every single game he was in, he was electric. He was scoring points. Like it was absolutely beautiful. Now, if you go to like 2021, you look at Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields, and I think Justin Fields is a similar type of quarterback where, he's going to win a lot with his legs. Yeah, and in year one, he had 11.4 fantasy points per game. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here when we talk about Anthony Richardson is scoring those points is massive. Because when he plays again, he's going to score a lot of fantasy points. Just a matter of if it's sustainable. But in a format that really values quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, I think you have to put him in this area. Now, again, if you want to put him at the back end of this tier, I completely 100% understand it. I think you could make a case to pick him in the early second in a startup, and I wouldn't really scoff at you. Now, after that, our fourth player here is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. We love Jahmyr Gibbs. And what a year for him. He ends up RB7 in points per game at 21 years old. He's the youngest RB1 on the season. Here you can see this is your top 12 points per game running backs. He is the youngest guy on this list, and he did it next to RB15 David Montgomery, who also had a hell of a year himself. So really, really good for a year from Jahmyr Gibbs, where he carved out this role for himself, was really, really good. He crushed it, and this was a guy that we loved going into the year. This is from our post-draft rookie running back rankings here. And you can see these were our comps for him. McCaffrey, Chris Johnson, CJ Spiller, Javid Best. I put those guys up again. I sorted them by year one points per game. And Jahmyr Gibbs comes out between Chris Johnson and Christian McCaffrey. I mean, that is as good as you could ask for. Now, if you want to look at the weights and everything, like, he looks the part. Chris Johnson, that 4.2 speed is really tough to get close to, but, 199 pounds, 4.36 speed. Looks very similar to a lot of these guys. Javid Best as well. Don't sleep on Javid Best. He had like a lot of brutal concussions. He would have been really, really good if he had stayed healthy. I am very excited about Jahmyr Gibbs. Of course, Chris Johnson and Christian McCaffrey are two like legendary fantasy football running backs. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is in that area, or not in that area, but I think he has the upside to be in that area, because to me the most exciting part is I don't even think he hit his like 80th percentile outcome, to be honest with you. Like, I think what was shocking was his rushing production. He was amazing on the ground. I think he had like 10 total touchdowns, super explosive, like great rushing yards over expected per attempt. I'm actually going to see on NFL Next Gen Stats what he ended up with. But the thing that's most exciting to me is he made most of his money on the ground this year, which means there's a lot of meat left on the bone for Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah, he ended up between Kyren Williams and Bijan Robinson in rushing yards over expected per attempt. He was really, really good this year. Now, this is the big part. Is the reason I wanted to draft him, the reason I liked him the most, is because I knew he could be efficient, right? That 4.3 speed. He showed he was a good runner at Bama, but it was the receiving upside, right? I compared him to Saquon and Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey had 80 catches as a rookie. Saquon had 91 catches as a rookie. Jahmyr Gibbs had more career catches in college than both of those running backs. But he only ended up with, now I will say, he missed, I think, 2 games, Jahmyr Gibbs, but he only ended up with 52 catches. I would have told you he would have cracked like 70. So the fact that he ended up as the RB7 in points per game with just 52 catches, when I think that his ceiling is more like 90, that's a lot of room to grow here, where if he can get more involved as a receiving back next year, the year after that, then we go from, RB7 points per game, like 16, 17 points per game, to 20 plus, 21 plus, 22 plus RB1 overall in your range, because he's already shown that he's a special runner, and that's what's so exciting. If he can show that he's a special runner and then add 80 plus catches to that total, we're talking about a top 3 running back at that point. So that's why you should be very excited about Jahmyr Gibbs here. Now, after that, we have Puka Nacua, man. Puka Nacua. I'm going to be honest, man. As a numbers guy, Puka Nacua slid right under my nose. I don't have a single dynasty share of Puka Nacua. I wish I bought early, but there was never a point where I really felt you could buy low on him. Like, he came out and was just dominant from day one. So I have him at number 5. If you want to put him all the way up to the top of this tier, you really could. If you want to make a case for him as your wide receiver 4 in dynasty, I think you could. He is very, very good. I find it absolutely bonkers the rookie year this guy had, just in the context of this offense, next to Cooper Kupp. He was next to Cooper Kupp for like 12 of these 16 games almost. Or 12 of these 17 games almost. And you can see, I'm putting it up next to Jefferson and Chase because Jefferson and Chase had these rookie years and then immediately vaulted to like wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in the dynasty landscape. Puka Nacua paced with them, man. 105 catches, more yards than both. The only thing that he skimped out on was receiving touchdowns, just 6 touchdowns. If this was a year where Matt Stafford had like a 40-plus touchdown year like he did in 2021 when they won the Super Bowl, Puka Nacua might have had 10-plus touchdowns. It might have had a rookie season that would only really compare to what OBJ did back in like 2014, 2015. So it is just absolutely brutal, absolutely insane. Of course, we all know Puka Nacua crushed it. He had a really good year, but it doesn't fully sink in until you compare it to guys like Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson. You look here as well. PFF receiving grade 85.1, better than Chase, worse than Jefferson. 17.6 points per game, better than Jefferson, worse than Chase. 2.59 yards per out run, better than Chase, worse than Jefferson. So, pacing with them across the board on the advanced stuff and yards per out run and receiving grade, in the raw stuff in terms of receiving yards and receptions, just spooky what this guy did. Now, this is going to be something we're going to reference with some of these rookie wide receivers, is I have a year 2 points per game projection model for rookie wide receivers. It takes into account your RS grade, right? So that's like draft capital, prospect pedigree, your points per game in year 1, yards per out run in year 1, PFF receiving grade, how many routes did you run, all of that. And when we put that in and we go all time, Puka Nacua is a part of, I believe, 13 wide receivers to be projected for 16-plus points per game in year 2. Again, remember, it projects what you're going to score. And you can see Jefferson, it got pretty close to a lot of these guys besides, Amari Cooper and Garrett Wilson in terms of their year 2 points per game. So he's expected to put up 16.8 points per game. And every wide receiver on this list is a first or second round pick. The fact that Puka Nacua is here in the 5th round as a 5th round guy and his prospect profile is baked in to this year 2 points per game projection is absolutely bonkers. What he did, you just don't see from guys that look like Puka Nacua. So in terms of what he did in year 1, really, really good, really, really special. Again, pacing Chase and Jefferson. He's a top 7 dynasty wide receiver at worst, wide receiver 4 at best, which means, that's a second. I'd probably take him around the 2-3 turn in a startup right now. Puka Nacua, absolutely blown away with what he did this year. Again, next to Cooper Kupp for a lot of this year. Now, after that, I'm going to have Sam Laporta. Now, Sam Laporta for me is very easily the tight end 1 in Dynasty right now. So, wherever you want to have him within this tier kind of just depends on how heavy your tight end premium is, how much your tight end spot takes up of your starting lineup, right? If it's start 9 and a tight end might matter more, start 11 it might matter less. So, just kind of takes into account how much you're going to value tight end. But for here, we'll put him at number 6. Sam Laporta went out there and had the best points per game season from a tight end since 2000. 14.1 points per game. He was the tight end 1 overall when just go into overall points, not per game, but just insane. Tight end 3 in points per game on the year. Now, the only thing I can really poke a hole in, right? You'll 100% take, you'll of course take 86 catches, 889 yards, and 10 touchdowns. The only hole I'll poke when it comes to Sam Laporta is that 10 touchdown total definitely inflates things a little bit. When you sort by yards, you see here, he wasn't, he wasn't the best tight end of all time. He kept pace with Hawkinson and Ingram and Kelsey and all of them. He just scored a lot of touchdowns. But at the same time, he kept pace with the top dogs. And that's all from a rookie tight end. That is unheard of. So still, again, he's my tight end 1. I'm just saying if you want to poke any holes, it's that 10 touchdowns definitely inflates your points per game. But outside of that, 86 catches, 118 targets, 889 yards, all still really, really, really strong for a rookie tight end. And then that's exciting about him is that he's athletic. So he doesn't really have limitations where, I don't know, you can sometimes see guys like TJ Hawkinson early on was hard to trust because it was man, he's not all that athletic. What does his upside look like? Sam Laporta runs a sub 4.6, comparable to George Kittle here on relative athletic score. Super agile too, super explosive, 8 to 9 plus in speed, so 40-yard dash, explosive stuff in vertical broad, and then also having an elite 3-cone time at the 6.91. Beautiful. Agile, athletic, explosive, everything you're looking for. Sam Laporta is that guy. Now, jumping down to our early first-round pick tier. Now, this is just, again, we're going to put Devin Achane in here. I love Devin Achane, but if you offered me I don't think you could even get this offer, but I'm just saying, like, this is what I mean by the tiers. If you offered me like the 103 for Devin Achane, 102, I probably sell him 102 straight up. 103, I think it's close, but I think I'd probably sell him for the 103 as well here in this upcoming class. But when we talk about Devin Achane, he's tough to wrestle with because I think there's going to be a lot of you guys out there that had Devin Achane and are like, man, he had a couple of sick games, but he also like really dragged your lineup some weeks. And I do understand being a little bit frustrated with the boom-bust nature of Devin Achane this year, but he's a rookie. And the fact that he put up any production at all is huge. And when we look at that list that we looked at earlier of, I believe, this one with Jahmyr Gibbs, Devin Achane in his first year finishes the RB5 in points per game, and that's counting his first game where he played like 0 snaps. So at the end of the day, you have to take that into account and put some respect on Devin Achane's name. Like just what he did from an efficiency standpoint, I think you have to love, especially we talked about it a couple days ago on the Top 10 Lessons Learned. Small running backs are in, right? 188 pounds for Devin Achane used to be like, man, like what the heck's this guy's ceiling? But in the modern NFL, where we're talking about like Jahmyr Gibbs and James Cook and Raheem Mostert and McCaffrey and Eckler as like fantasy studs, Achane to me fits in just fine. He had the most yards per carry in a single season in NFL history, 7.8, minimum 100 carries. Just absolutely insane. Rich Rebar has a stat as well here. Achane ended with a run of 10-plus yards on 21.6% of his 103 rushes. The only player with a higher rate on 100 or more carries in the 2000s was 2017 Alvin Kamara, and just barely at 22.5%. So this is a really special player. You know, in terms of like efficiency and what he can do, we're talking like Jamal Charles, Chris Johnson, Alvin Kamara, all of that stuff. And that is really exciting. And again, the boom-bust nature of Devin Achane was a little bit frustrating, but if you're playing him in like a deep dynasty league where you have, you know, I don't know, like 3 flexes, 3 wide receiver spots, 2 running back spots, like Achane's going to get in your lineup and it's going to be just fine most weeks. Like he's not going to weigh you down on a start 11, if that makes sense. Now, in a home league where it's 2 running backs and a flex and you really need something, that's where it gets a little bit more frustrating with Achane. But he finishes RB5 in points per game, like we said. He had a 51.3-point game. I believe 5 of his 11 games he went for 20 or more PPR points. Just insane. Again, in an era that lacks bell cows, I'm not all that concerned about like volume or size or anything like that. I think you just have to understand, super talented, super efficient. You just kind of have to buy into that profile, especially with the marriage of his talent and McDaniel. I think it's just all perfect. Again, the only negatives, 188 pounds. And he had a 10.3% target share, but 10.3% for a rookie, to me, is fine. It shows that he can catch the ball, even though that he was sharing a backfield with Mostert and receiving weapons like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Now, moving on from this tier, Achane's the only one in this tier for me. We move on to mid-rookie first. And this is just somebody that I would debate either buying or selling for somewhere around the 106. First up, we'll put Tank Dell. Now, this tier is really tough, fellas. I'm going to be honest. There's about like 5 wide receivers in this tier, and you can kind of jumble them up however you like. This is what I landed on. Now, we have a lot of things to get into with these rookie wide receivers. It's really tough to sift through them. With Tank Dell, this is kind of what it comes down to. He had 15 points per game this year. This is your best point per game seasons by rookie wide receiver since 2000. And you can see Tank Dell, 15 plus. He's in this range. Like even if you go from like AJ Green up, the only miss in there is Eddie Royal, right? Tank Dell is in there with like Ayuk and Evans and Michael Thomas and Marcus Colston and Anquan Bolden, Puka Nacua. It's a crazy list. Keenan Allen below him, AJ Green below him. Tank Dell had a really, really good year. He had 15 plus points per game. He's going to have CJ Stroud into perpetuity, right? Like him and CJ Stroud are going to get together forever, it seems. Tank Dell had a really special game in 11 games. Now, Tank Dell suffered an injury. It didn't seem like it was all that serious. Like I think it seems like he's going to be playing next year. That's really the only 2 knocks on him right now is he got hurt. So who knows how that's going to affect him next year. To me, it shouldn't be a huge, huge deal. And then number 2, he is already 24. That is a big knock on him. He's like a JUCO guy, so he came out super, super late. 24 years old is tough, but he scored so many fantasy points. He looked so good early on, and he didn't, like, the biggest issue you have with these small guys is that they become a gadget like a Rondale Moore or a Wan'Dale Robinson. Instead, he was like this high ADOT down the field, like playing way bigger than his size type of player. He is super, super exciting, and he produced enough to me to put him at the top of kind of the second year of rookie wide receivers. Now, if you wanted to put him, you know, behind this next guy, you absolutely could. Zay Flowers will be next up for me. He is our 9th overall player in this class. Now, with this class, I have this screenshot here. Now, this looks like a lot, but this is, again, our year 2 point per game projection model. It takes into account prospect pedigree, points per game, yards per out run, all of that good stuff. Just like a bunch of factors from your rookie year plus the prospect that you were, and it spits out how many points per game you should put up in year 2. This is yellow highlighted is your 2023 class. The entire list goes back to the 2020 class. So you can just kind of get a feel for, over the last few classes, where they stack up after year 1. And you can see Zay Flowers is way ahead of Tank Dell. Now, Tank Dell is only so low on this list because there's a little bit of a flaw with the model. It takes into account your total routes and your total targets, just to like get a feel for if you were a starting wide receiver. Well, when you get hurt, that's going to take away a lot. So on top of him being a bronze prospect and all of that, it really hurt him. But you can make the case maybe I should do routes per game and stuff, but I didn't really want to gas up the small sample guys like Kadarius Toney. So I don't know. Maybe we'll tweak something like that, but I think it's also fine to just user adjust and say Tank Dell should be much higher on this list. Then you have Zay Flowers in between Drake London and Chris Olave. So to say that he kind of was on pace in terms of these peripherals we're looking at here with guys like Drake London and Chris Olave and Brandon Ayuk here is huge. Zay Flowers to me looks a lot like Brandon Ayuk. Not the best prospect in the world, right? Late declare, smaller school guy, but he looks fine to me. He did just enough in year 1 for me to like him. This is the rookie wide receiver report as well to our left, where we have total routes, yards, targets per out run, yards per out run, PFF grade, all of that good stuff that we used on the Top 10 Lessons Learned video. And you can see Zay Flowers just looked solid, right? 19.9% target per out run, 1.64 yards per out run, and a 73.9 PFF grade. All of those are just fine. Like, they're not in the elite range, but this was somebody that was a first-round pick, looked the part, had some production on the ground, too, that's going to take away from his receiving stats. Zay Flowers, to me, just super, super clean. He was also the wide receiver 9 in points per game from week 12 on, which is the moment that Mark Andrews went down. So Zay Flowers came up big when Mark Andrews got hurt. He looks really good. Now, after that, we have Jordan Addison, fellow first-round pick, super young. He's going to be 22 years old in just a couple weeks. Jordan Addison, 10th overall player. He's similar to Flowers. Both these guys got taken first round. Both of them did just fine in year 1. And that's really all there is to it. You know, with Jordan Addison, it's tough. It's like he's behind Jefferson, but who really knows? I don't know. Like, wide receivers get moved around a ton. It's like there's also some uncertainty of who's his quarterback going to be. Kirk Cousins coming off the Achilles. Are they going to sign or trade or, you know, draft somebody? Who truly knows? But Jordan Addison had 70 catches, 911 yards, and 10 touchdowns as a rookie. You don't have to look much deeper than that to say, okay, Addison did pretty well here. Now, I will say, when we look at the rookie wide receiver report, Addison comes up a little bit worse than Flowers, right? 17.2% targets per out run, 1.5 yards per out run, under 70 PFF grade. What I will say about the per route stuff is he was 7th in the NFL in total routes run. The Vikings in that Kevin O'Connell scheme run a ton of pass plays. They play up-tempo. They run a lot of routes. So when you're 7th in the NFL in routes, it's hard to be super efficient on those routes because there's such a high volume as a rookie, but still would have liked something a little bit better. But again, he's young. He's running routes. He's scoring points. And that's really all we can ask for from a guy like Jordan Addison. I just don't really know what his ceiling looks like. Now, after that, we have Rashee Rice. Sketchier prospect, right, where he is, I believe he's on the older side, too. If you look at Rashee Rice's age, I would guess he's like 23. Yeah, he's 23, turns 24 in April. So we're talking about a really old prospect here. But when we look at that rookie wide receiver report, Rashee Rice absolutely crushes it. He's at the top. He tied in PFF grade with Puka Nacua. 25% plus targets per out run is amazing. 2+ yards per out run is amazing. I mean, there's really nothing more you could ask for. That 85.1 PFF grade is absolutely insane. Like, if we look at, this is every wide receiver that I have in my database. Now, I will say a lot of these, like, number of top 5 seasons, number of top 12 seasons, just a heads up, I haven't updated for the 2023 season yet. So have any of these guys gotten like a top 12 finish or top 5 finish I don't know about? I would imagine Ayuk hit a top 12 season this year, but I could be wrong. But I'm just saying it's not fully updated. So those numbers are a little bit off here. But you can see Rashee Rice, the only guys with a better PFF receiving grade than Rashee Rice and Puka Nacua, OBJ, Jefferson, McLaurin, Percy Harvin, Michael Thomas. All of those guys besides Terry McLaurin have a top 12 finish. 3 of the 5 of them have a top 5 points per game finish. It's really good company. It's really good company in general, just being 78.5 and above. I used to say 80. But 78.5 and above have all been really good, right? Diggs, Kupp, Waddle, Higgins, Amon-Ra, Godwin, Hill, Ayuk, Bo, Thomas, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown. Like, it's just a really strong list. You can see Nathaniel Dell's up there as well. which is why, or Tank Dell, but Nathaniel Dell in my spreadsheets, if you will. But that's why we have him so high as well. Now, the only knockback you have on Rice is that he's going to be old. And the only thing that really concerns me with him is he had a 5.2 yard ADOT, which was like the lowest in the NFL. But still being able to have a really good yards per run on that ADOT means that he's been amazing after the catch, and that's exciting because the more that he develops as a wide receiver, that ADOT will push further out, and then he'll kind of be like an Ayuk where he can be like a downfield pass catcher and then also have the after the catch ability of a guy like Ayuk. So Rashee Rice, really, really exciting. He's attached to Mahomes for the foreseeable future. And then he also, from weeks 14 on, that was his first game of 75% or more of the routes. He was the wide receiver 9 in points per game once he hit that threshold. So we can see him as a full-time wide receiver next year. Rashee Rice looks very, very special. Again, we are really just like splitting hairs with this list here. Now, after that, we have JSN, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. JSN's a really tough evaluation, man, because it really comes down to how much did you love him as a prospect? Because what he did in year one was a bunch of nothing, to be honest with you. Now, when we look at, is this what I'm looking for? This is what I'm looking for. So when you look at that year 2 point per game projection model, and I just have it sorted for every elite wide receiver prospect in my database, JSN is towards the bottom of this list in the area. He is sandwiched between, this is the dichotomy of JSN. He's sandwiched between Treylon Burks and Rashad Bateman, but then he is also sandwiched between DeAndre Hopkins, Demaryius Thomas, and Alshon Jeffrey. So you can talk yourself into him being the next DeAndre Hopkins, Demaryius Thomas, Alshon Jeffrey, Devontae Adams, where they sucked in year one and they kind of figured it out late. I think that he didn't do so poorly that he face-planted and that's out of the range of outcomes, but I think it's foolish to say for sure he's the next DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams. Like, to me, there's just a very wide range here. He is either Rashad Bateman, Treylon Burks level of bad, or he has the upside to be perennial wide receiver 1, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams type of guy. Now, of course, it's not his archetype, right? Of course, he's going to be in the slot, a little bit of a different type of player, just in terms of like high range of outcomes in 2024. Now, the reason why I'm saying that there's such a gap there is because this is somebody we all loved, my wide receiver 1. He finished with less points per game this year than Josh Downs, Gabe Davis, Wan'Dale Robinson, DeMarcus Robinson, and Rashid Shaheed. It's just not great. If you want to go after the bye week, so he came into the year with a hurt wrist. After the bye week, not much better, 10.1 points per game, which would have been about like wide receiver 43. So we're still not really talking about somebody that was startable or like good this year, but it's tough. I think to put him over the 4 receivers we just listed ahead of him, you have to have some take lock, right? Where a lot of people thought like he was this really, really good wide receiver prospect where he should have been touted as like the next Garrett Wilson, Drake London, like top 10 pick. Well, he fell because he was hurt and he had like a really weird last year. I bought into that, but I think now it's just that maybe he wasn't that good of a prospect. Maybe he was just your late first round type guy. I mean, Jefferson was a late first round type guy, but I don't know that he was as good as advertised. A lot of people said, well, you know, he played next to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. He should be able to produce in this offense next to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. He didn't really. I think he ended up with like 60 catches for like 600-something yards. Really not what you were hoping for there, especially us. Like I drafted him a lot, especially in redraft here. But this could be a buy low. This could be another Rashad Bateman. It's really hard to tell. I would just say I'm just trying to be realistic here. I have him at the 12th overall player in this class. I think if you're holding on to him and saying like he's better than Tank Dell and a lot of these receivers here, I think that it's kind of take lock. But you know, he is in this tier. If you feel that strongly and you feel that way, then go ahead and have at it. But I have a tough time looking at it objectively what he did in year 1, saying that he is going to be just fine. Now, after that, we have Will Levis in our late rookie first tier. Now, this one's tough because if I had Levis, I don't think I would sell him for a late rookie first. But I think in this 2024 class, if you were sitting on like the 109, I think that you could trade like the 109 for Will Levis straight up. And I think that that's a deal that could go down here. Now, Levis is a boom-bust guy, and I don't mind betting on the upside of him at the quarterback spot because he has so many tools. Like he's this big, super huge arm type of quarterback, and that's kind of the guy that you want to be targeting at this point. Like the NFL's life cycle is just like those guys have a higher range of outcomes. And this is where he stacked up in terms of his year one EPA per play. This is sorted round 1 and 2 quarterbacks since 2000 that played enough games in their first year sorted by EPA per play. And you can see Will Levis, like Bryce Young was much, much worse than him towards that, like, Zach Wilson, Blaine Gabbert area. But Will Levis is in this spot where it's not great, It's like Trevor Lawrence. You can kind of say, like Josh Allen, Flacco, Wentz, but not really in terms of like how good he was. But he wasn't like god-awful is kind of what I'm trying to say here from an EPA per play perspective. And we look at some of these passing charts, man. This is what I love. This was his first game, and I know that it's like, okay, he had one good game, whatever. But, like, holy shit, man. Like, he had 3 touchdowns in this game that all traveled in the air 40 or more yards, one of them off of his back foot. The arm talent is clearly there, and I don't mind betting on that at all, right? 6'4", 230 pounds, cannon for an arm. Tannehill's likely gone. Vrabel's gone. They're drafting high enough to take a quarterback, but I imagine the top 3 will be gone by the time the Titans pick. I think Levis is probably the week 1 starter on this team, so I don't really mind betting on the uncertainty here, especially if he's going to be a little bit cheaper than he was after his first few starts. And for a guy that had like under a 60% completion percentage, he was still kind of efficient on a per throw basis here, or per attempt basis. Adjusted yards per attempt. This is every quarterback in my in the stat database on Football Pro Reference. I want to say this is since 2000, but you can see 14th on this list isn't terrible, right? He had a better adjusted yards per attempt than Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Andrew Luck even. Like, for a guy with under 60% completion percentage, he's pushing the ball downfield enough to the point where he's getting efficiency on these throws despite them not getting completed at a high percentage. So if he can now, get over that hump, get the 60% completion on these deep throws and really let it fly, you're working with some stuff here. He also has some wheels. He can move a little bit. I do like me some Will Levis. I will say again, he is like JSN where the outcomes are super wide. He is either like the next coming of a Josh Allen or he's Drew Lock. Like it is either rock bottom or it is flirting with a first round startup pick in the next 2 years for Will Levis. But I'd rather roll the dice on that. I know the consensus right now is having Bryce Young ahead of Will Levis. I can't get there. We have Bryce Young at 14th, and we look at EPA per play here. It is brutal. These are your worst EPA per play seasons of all time for rookie quarterbacks drafted in the first round since 2007. And Bryce Young here, I will say, he's not Jamarcus Russell, Jared Goff, Josh Rosen bad. But he's not that far off. Again, EPA per play is on a per play basis. How much you're giving above or below expected, right? Like if you get the ball to 50, you're expected to get a field goal. If you get a touchdown, that's above, right, in terms of EPA per drive. And then you can sort of distill that down to per play. If you score 0 points and you go 3 and out, then that'll be a negative on that drive or on a per play basis. So Bryce Young was not moving the chains, not scoring points, not doing any good. Now, of course, the situation wasn't great, right? The coach got fired midseason. His number 1 receiver was a washed-up Adam Thielen. The offensive line was brutal. Lots of things going against him. But the thing that I have an issue with Bryce Young is he doesn't have – I can't talk myself into the tools with Bryce Young, right? Like Will Levis, cannon arm, massive. He's going to throw the ball downfield. It's going to be a lot of chaos. But if you can kind of capture that chaos on a bottle like Josh Allen has done recently, there's something there. Trevor Lawrence, awful first year, but we're talking like 6'6", rocket arm, can move, and there's a lot of things that you can sell yourself on that will always be there, like the foundation to build on. Bryce Young, he's Kyler Murray without the special wheels, and that is really scary. He hasn't really shown a ton. I think to me, like you look at this list, I would say his ceiling here, I'd say his floor is Zach Wilson. His ceiling is like Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, and that's not like that's a much condensed range of outcomes than a guy like Will Levis. And when we get to we're just throwing late firsts, early seconds at quarterbacks and hoping for upside, I'd rather a guy like Will Levis. Now, could Bryce Young come out here this next year, completely prove me wrong? Sure, but my goodness, what an awful first year here. I just don't know how he rebounds into being a top 15 startup pick, but we have seen Tua get there. If Bryce Young was to ever do that, he'd be a massive sell for me. It's tough. I also don't think the Panthers are going anywhere fast. Like David Tepper's been absolutely brutal. He's now fired like every coach he's had. If Bryce Young is going to do the same thing that Sam Darnold did, where he had like 3 different coaches in the span of 4 years, it's just a brutal environment to be a part of. So I don't know. It's tough for me to be optimistic at all on a guy like Bryce Young. Now, 15th overall on this list, we have Jayden Reed. If you want to put Jayden Reed in this tier, you absolutely can. We're splitting hairs here. I'm going to put him outside of this tier, and I only have him behind the quarterbacks because they're quarterbacks. We talked about it earlier. Quarterbacks are king in startups. it's tough. Like, Jayden Reed, I don't know how he ever becomes a top 20 startup pick, you know? So that's what it's tough for me. Like if you were to sell Bryce Young straight up for Jayden Reed, Bryce Young rebounds and becomes a top 20 startup pick. I mean, that one stings. That one really stings. So that's why I have Reed here. But again, if you want to put him with these guys, you absolutely can. I think that's kind of the toughest dichotomy is like these receivers versus these two quarterbacks just based on positional value. Like I think in their own positions, of course the wide receivers are better. They showed much more in year one. But the kind of value upside that these guys can have is massive. Like Jordan Love probably played himself into being like a third-round startup pick this year. Now, with Jayden Reed, I really like him. I think it's fair to say that he's in a small tier break below those other guys. But if we look at the rookie wide receiver report, he looked great. 23% targets per out run, 2.05 yards per out run, 76 PFF grade. All of those super strong. He hits all of the thresholds we're looking for. He just didn't like over exceed any of them, which is like the only thing that holds him back. So again, I prefer the QBs that are ahead of him. I prefer the wide receivers that are ahead of him, but we are kind of splitting hairs with all of these guys, if I am being completely honest. Now, the last player we'll talk about here is Dalton Kincaid. This might feel a little low for Dalton Kincaid. I don't love him. It's tough for me to like really be all that enthusiastic about him. He's finished as the tight end 9 since 2000 in rookie points per game at the tight end position. That's not bad, but it's not like special or anything. Like I think I feel similar to him that I did with like Freiermuth after his rookie year. You know, not super special tight end, but a guy that'll probably be in the mix as a tight end 1, like a top 12 guy into perpetuity or whatever. The issue is that he was really helped out by the Dawson Knox injury. Dawson Knox goes out, and weeks 8 through 12, he was the tight end 5 in points per game over that stretch with 13.8 points per game. He was a tight end 13 on the entire year. Once Knox came back, he completely flamed out at the end of the year there. So it's tough. I mean, he's attached to Josh Allen. That's exciting. But Dalton Kincaid is already 24. He's the oldest guy in this list. I think him and Tank Dell are. And then I believe as well, with those Dawson Knox splits, Dawson Knox last offseason signed a contract extension. Like, if Dawson Knox was leaving in this offseason, he'd be like, okay, wheels up for Dalton Kincaid. But Dawson Knox doesn't have an out on his contract until 2025. So he's for sure playing in 2024. And it's not until the offseason of 2025 that they would actually like get out of this deal. And even then, it's brutal. Like his cap hit this year in 2024 is $14.3 million. Like they're paying Dawson Knox a lot. And if Kincaid only really thrives without Knox, you're going to be waiting a while for that to come. So that's really the only issue for me is I don't know that Knox can give you like top 5 tight end numbers without a Knox injury. So for that reason, I have him last on this list. Now that is going to do it for us today. That is my top 16 if I was to rank these players for the 2023 draft class. Just putting a bow on the 2023 season, the 2023 rookie class. And now looking forward, we will be getting into the 2024 stuff, all of that good stuff. And I think early next week, we'll look through all my teams. So a lot of you guys wanted to look through my home leagues, my high stakes leagues. We'll do that next week again. Still waiting for some of these like boomer sites to pay out and stuff, but we look like we're about to be good to go. On top of that, I want to do this as well because I'm going to do a Dynasty rankings update. So I don't push the Patreon often. I actually need to change up this screenshot to make it so it's Dynasty related, but we're going to have a Dynasty rankings update. If you have like a startup coming up, I would say by like next Thursday, that'll be out. We'll have like a top 20 rookie rankings as well. And in the Dynasty rankings as well, I'll probably have like where I would take rookie picks too. So be on the lookout for that. As always, I love you guys. Patreon.com/RonStrew. You can find it in the description and the comment section down below. But if you can't support there, leave a like, subscribe. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze.